Thing for database is that at least we find that you've got to have one that works with what you want it to do. So if you're only really interested in doing sort of mail outs to people or email blasts out to people, then don't get the ones that have too many bells and whistles for sales. Right? You can get like products like Salesforce or others that really work well for those companies that are doing a sales-based thing primarily. Just get a basic one that can sort of handle your emails and integrate with a lot of the programs that you're using, such as things like MailChimp or others. We can talk about Nation Builder at some point as well. We've used Nation Builder. It's not a great product for our needs because we have a more complex system than what I think Nation Builder can handle for us. But for a lot of groups, and a lot of groups I'm sure you're working with in terms of campaigns, Nation Builder is a great tool to be an all-in-one sort of database product, plus CMS and do your email out and all that kind of stuff. What we've done at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, we have a custom database, one that works exactly the way that we want it to, but it doesn't have all the integration that we would like. It doesn't have sort of all those APIs and the fancy things that integrate with MailChimp and all the other tools you might use. So it's a give and take. For us, we're happy with where we're at. You can always be happier, but these things can get very expensive very quickly. So you also got to watch your dollars, and a lot of them base their dollars, the price, on how much you're planning on putting in there. So if you plan on being very big, you should know that going into it.
So let's talk about some database advice and tips that I could instill to all of you. So I've got a few really good ones, and I think we touched on a lot of advanced steps already, in the sense that segmentation and tagging is so critical for success here. But just even tagging people appropriately from your lead magnet makes a big difference from a database management perspective. If I tag people when they came from YouTube or came from Instagram or came from Facebook, even that little small step of tagging can make a big difference into the personalization of how I'm able to communicate with people in my database. And, we've all heard that old adage, if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody. And I think that still applies, more generally speaking, to your database as a whole. You may have 50,000, 100,000 committed activists to your organization, to your campaign, et cetera. But still, they all have personal issues that will most push the needle in terms of them taking action. The better that we can tag and segment our databases, the more we'll be successful in being effective at communicating with our audience. And there's a lot of good examples of this. One of them that comes to my mind immediately is that, thankfully, actually, it was interesting hearing how we put a field for the phone number, and you achieved even more data collection efforts by asking for a phone number. I'm curious why that is. That's really interesting. The testing, really an important standpoint. But one thing we collect a lot here in the States is the zip code. And if I know where you live, then imagine this email hitting your inbox. The latest, most important thing that you need to check out that is, affecting Canada. Or I can say that same amazing tool, tactic, technique, etc., that's affecting you in your neighborhood. And I'm able to reach out to you by your zip code. That next step of personalization makes a tremendous difference in conversion rates and in open rates. Now, the other thing that I wanted to just really emphasize here as we talk about databases is a lot of times when we have these databases, and two of them that I strongly recommend are Iterable, and I also really recommend HubSpot. I think both of them would serve needs, and for a lot of different reasons, so I'll get into just after this point. But what people do is they have dyadic relationships with people in their database. And here's what I mean when we're creating a dyad. It means that I grabbed your contact information and I have you on my database. And the person who now is familiar with my campaign, familiar with my organization, has that one-to-one communication. That's a dyad relationship. My biggest push for people in 2021 and 2022, as we turn the page, is to create more triads, more triadic relationships. And basically what this means is creating an online watering hole to supplement and complement your database. And, an online watering hole, it reminds me of like in Africa, there's like an oasis of water where all the animals come together and can kind of communicate with each other. But that same principle should apply. It's more than just the database. How are people on our database able to communicate with each other? It could be a subreddit. It could be a Facebook group. It could be a Telegram group. But creating that watering hole will allow for people in your community to really foster a strong connection. And then you, as the leader at the top, sending correspondence, sending marketing to these individuals, it's going to hit. very much more significantly because you're connecting with people in more than just one channel. And so database management is important for both segmentation and tagging, but also ask yourself the question of how am I supplementing my database with a online watering hole? And I think you'll achieve a lot more success. But let me just step back for a second because I brought up two of them that I recommend in terms of databases, Iterable and HubSpot. They are both fantastic for the very reasons that we are identifying, in the sense that you can segment and tag appropriately and also apply some advanced automation, which is really great. Using tools like Zapier, you can now connect those automated tasks and achieve just a little bit more efficiency overall. They're both really, really strong. In a lot of ways, these days, it's kind of like picking Coke or Pepsi. The way it was just described was, you making sure that, you don't necessarily need all those bells and whistles. I think that's pretty accurate for the most part. And I think both of these will achieve what most people need to do. But here's the thing. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But ways that we can definitely boost our database opportunities, number one, is making sure that we properly onboard people onto our database. And imagine that you're hiring a new employee or a new intern is starting at your campaign or your organization. Do you just give them a rule book and say good luck? Absolutely not. You tell them what to expect and ultimately what your values are, and hopefully introduce them step by step more and more of your brand, hopefully building on low threshold asks as well. But let's start thinking about what our onboarding process looks like for our database and realize that people, when they get onboarded, they're going to funnel, roughly speaking, in the two big buckets. The first one is active and the second one is inactive. And when it comes from database management, we need to factor in both of them. Now, time, of course, is a very finite resource. We have to prioritize where our effort should be, and it should be with our active list, aka the people that are corresponding back with us. However, if we have the time, it should be an initiative or a push for us to drive as much of our inactive subscribers over to our active. And if we do that, then we're going to reduce the churn on our database and ultimately be able to serve people in the best way possible. But just to kind of take another step back, Iterable, HubSpot, make sure that we're communicating with these people to the best of our ability and being really a servant leader. And you're going to find a lot more success as you collect more information. And of course, the more information you can get, the better. What we found a couple times, I've been testing this significantly, is when I've required, actually, to come back to that phone number, when I've required the phone number in a field, a form field, when I'm trying to list build, I've seen that it lowers just a little bit. But of course, everybody has to test with their own list and their own list acquisition efforts. But what I've made it optional, we've actually had almost everybody continue to fill out that form with their phone number. And so small things, but we want to collect as much as possible. But in terms of importance, in my mind, I'm always going first name, last name, phone number, email, and then hopefully a zip code or identifier where I can now target them geographically speaking. So that's what I'm trying to think about when I'm putting people into my database, to get as much information without making them feel like they're giving away, everything. And then from there, starting to think about that onboarding process. And again, with Iterable and HubSpot, we can automate this. So there's a welcome email series that's being pushed to people who are opening our messages and corresponding with us. And then from there, hopefully we can get them taking action much more reliably and meaningfully. First and foremost, of course, community guidelines will always help. Moderators will always help. Make sure that we're steering people in the right direction in terms of content, and also making sure that people don't get too off track and keeping people as focused as possible. But the second part kind of tunes into that moderator aspect. And here's the mistake that I'll find in a lot of campaigns and organizations that do push forward with this watering hole idea, is that they have one person. They'll give it to a coordinator, they'll give it to a manager, somebody like that who's now the leader of this entire Facebook group or the leader of this entire Telegram group or subreddit, etc. But what I found to be more successful over time is having many people lead and actually allowing your volunteers and people joining your list, people joining your efforts to become that leader. One of our favorite quotes here at Leadership Institute is titles are free, and we can give them a title and we can get them involved. And this is a great opportunity for a lot of people that want to take that next step in terms of activism, in terms of grassroots, to elevate them, promote them to being a leader for this particular watering hole. And now we have 3 people, 4 people, 5 people moderating this group. It's going to have much more effectiveness than one person at the top trying to kind of rein everybody in or corral people. And so really the answer is having as many people as possible help foster the culture of that watering hole. And then of course, making sure there's robust community guidelines and moderation tools to make sure nothing gets too far off track. But again, having a couple people at the top is going to beat one person kind of trying to hold the reins of everything. You're going to have much more success that way.
And I still recommend Facebook over all the other social media networks. There are like 25 million Canadians on Facebook. You're not going to find that in any other social media, like short of maybe YouTube, which is also quite good. But we focused on there. Facebook also for us has been a spot where people are more political. They tend to be more political. They tend to express more opinions, and they tend to want to get more engagement there than we've seen in other social media networks. But we started building that up, and then growing by using some of their tools, growing our lists, and I would say particularly in the last 2 or 3 years, it's been I wouldn't say exponential, but it's been even more rapid growth than we've seen even before that. And we have a very large database of individual Canadians who are want to take action on issues of importance. And it started with petitions have been a tool that a lot of activists have used, and we use them for a few different reasons. And it's not just sort of naked list building. You're not just out there taking advantage of people's wanting to do something. We actually try to use them to do two things: one, to activate those people on that issue, and two, to deliver the petitions. So we actually go and physically do a press conference, usually outside of a minister's office or the steps of a legislature or whatnot, and deliver people's petitions that they've signed. And so we found that to be a good advocacy tool, but also we help identify those people that are interested in that issue and can organize them to make change, right? And that's the thing, is that people are willing to take action, but like one email here and there, or one letter here or there on an issue doesn't move the needle. And what we hear consistently from politicians is when they get flooded with a lot of letters, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, all within a short period of time, all on the same issue, that's what gets their attention. And so we've tried to take those petitions and the list that people have voluntarily joined and given us. We try to take them and say, like, now is the time. Now is the time for us all to take collective action and push back. And it's been effective. And we've seen it recently, even here with was it Bill C-10 with the censorship bill. It wasn't just our organization, of course, but there were lots of different groups and lots of people who were all pushing back at the same time. Got a government that was pretty committed to that to back off. And so even when you have an ideological government that is committed to doing something, they still know that they need to get votes at the end of the day, and building up your lists should be about that too. Well, offline, I mean, we're still doing mail. Mail is still an important tool. We still do telephone, and we still have people knock on doors. And so telephone is becoming increasingly more difficult. They've put a lot of roadblocks and ways to kind of slow that down, because a lot of people find it intrusive. I mean, I know I'm someone who, when I see a number I don't recognize on my phone, I don't answer. So it's an increasingly more difficult tool, but mail is still great. Mailing a large list of people with a letter, either informing them or giving something away. One thing we do is give away like bumper stickers or magazines or other resources that we can give to people that they would like. It's still a very useful tool for a lot of people, and there are still people who don't have computers and internet, particularly if we look at conservatives who are in rural areas, who may be a little bit older. There's still a percentage of the population that either don't like using the computer, are not interested in it, or just don't have access to good, strong internet. So you have to reach them in other ways.
So I've got 3 of them for you that may be pretty exciting. And at least 2 of them that you may not have tried before. So let's go ahead and hop right into it for the sake of time. Number 1 is contests. We found a lot of success running contests. Win a signed T-shirt, a signed hat from this important VIP, works really, really well. But also, the thing that we can do is tie this into our petition building. And this is the interweaving that makes this a very strong strategy. For example, most people probably have ran a petition saying, we want to know the number 1 issue that's affecting you in your home right now. Is it COVID-19? Is it the economy? Is it education, etc.? Now, what we have found is, of course, we get a lot of responses from this, but we can supercharge these efforts when we also embed a contest alongside it. And so now, if you share your thoughts with us, you have a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. You have a chance to win a dinner with a VIP or a special conference call opportunity with the, leading members of the organization or campaign. That really has increased our response rate significantly. And so it's running a contest in tandem with your petition building efforts that will supercharge the amount of results that you're getting. The second thing that I have for you is a new feature that you'll see on a lot of Fortune 100 companies these days, but can be absolutely used in politics. In fact, I was in the United States over here, we've got a very popular online fundraising platform called WinRed. And I was on their website asking questions and talking to them. And as soon as I hopped onto their website casually to look up just a small piece of information, a chatbot popped up in the bottom right-hand corner and asked, there was a chatbot donor support assistant. And then there was a bunch of preloaded responses. And of course, it could connect me to a live agent. Now, these chatbots are pretty easy to install these days and pretty affordable. There's two of them that I've used in the past. One's called liveperson.com and the other one's called livechatinc.com. Both great services. The first one, respectively, is $40 a month. The second one is $33 a month. But what this looks like, if you have basic HTML knowledge, is you just have to copy and paste code into your website, and then you can have that chatbot, and you can set the hours. And so, it doesn't have to be 10 o'clock at night and someone's typing into your website. But if you're online from 8 to 5, traditional work hour days, then you can have someone on their phone via app or desktop app just monitor that chat conversation and respond to people in real time. We've seen a lot of success there, both for list acquisition efforts and also just for better connectivity to people who have immediate questions about a campaign or an organization. And then the third and final list building effort that most people have done at this point, but we have just found a lot of success with it, is merchandise. People love getting things in exchange for their information. And even just the chance at something, again, more contest style would be pretty significant. But if you are able to, and this is very easy, if I'm thinking like I'm balling on a budget, so to speak, I'm a organization, I'm a campaign with not a lot of dollars, I could go onto a website like canva.com, canva.com, free, easy graphic design, build a couple of t-shirts, buy 5 of them, buy 10 of them. And then now I can upcharge, I can sell them for $35, for $40 as a campaign donation or an organizational donation. And now that's also increasing my brand as people are wearing this merchandise, and that has t-shirts, mugs, hats, everything you could need. But worst case scenario, let's imagine I didn't even sell anything and it didn't work out very well. I can still give these t-shirts to my top supporters and activists who've been committed to my cause this entire time. And so it's a win on both fronts, because people will exchange information for merchandise and also donate for merchandise significantly. But also think about those other two options, chatbots on your website, and then the first one, of course, roll a contest into your petition building efforts for success. But just real quickly, one question I get all the time is like, Stephen, this is a great idea, but how do I run one of these contests? My recommendation is a website called woobox.com, WOOBOX.com. And, you've seen these contests on maybe Instagram before where it says you've got to, tag three friends down below, make sure you follow these 3 pages for your chance to be entered. And of course, submit this petition, but it'll do all the heavy lifting for you. And so again, from, if we're running we're a team of 2 to 5 people, we can run this contest effectively and get a lot of names on our list pretty quickly. So those are 3 quick recommendations for you.
Particularly recently, we've seen quite a good success with making them a little bit smaller so you can mail them, and they can fit on a laptop instead of a bumper, because we find that not everyone wants to put one on their car. But we have, in fact, we've given away them for free for the most part. And what we find, though, is when we send them out to people, we'll often drop in a reply envelope saying, hey, if you like this, we're going to give out more to other people. If you want to support the efforts for us to give out more bumper stickers, send us a donation. And it's been tremendous. It's paid for itself and then some. But so I think they've been pretty useful, and it's a pretty inexpensive risk. It's a pretty low risk for you as well, because they're not that expensive. You're not giving away a pile of t-shirts or hats. In addition to petitions, think about ebooks. That's something that we've been starting to do. Give people some value, and they're more likely to become engaged. And also, there's a higher instant donation rate when you're giving something away. We don't do it, but I know Leadership Institute does it. Courses, quizzes. I know that's something that Stephen will probably talk about, so I'll leave that to him. And then when you get someone in, having a good welcome series and cultivate that relationship is really important. So having a series of emails when someone comes into your list, where you give them something of value as well. Like we give them copies of digital copies of our magazine, free ebooks we give to them when they come on our list. It's not just about like, hi, thanks for joining our list, give us money. Oh, by the way, did you give us money? Here's another email, did you give us money? It has to be, engagement. So take this action, fill out the survey, give us information. Here's some free resources we think you can use, and then eventually, yeah, maybe you would want to join and give us some money. And we have, we have sort of a process that we go through both with new donors, trying to encourage them to come onto a recurring donation, which is a great thing if you can get people on giving you a monthly gift, but also just trying to get people engaged right away, because that first 45 days that someone's on your list is the time where if you don't get them engaged, you can't come back, 46 or 90 days later and hope they're even going to remember that they signed up with your list. So get them right away and get them engaged.
Number one is increasing your subject lines and bettering them. We should throw them through headline analyzers at this point to make sure that we've optimized them for success. One of them that's free, that's really amazing for the one person's listening that wants to increase their open rate. I promise, run it through this headline analyzer, your open rate's going up. It's called headlines.sharethrough, like we're sharing through something, headlines.sharethrough.com. And score above a 60, and I promise your headline, your open rate is going to be it's going to be higher, than if you had not used this headline analyzer. I personally use a paid one called headlines.coschedule.com, but that share through one is totally free, will always be free. So check it out. Try it. If it doesn't work, let me know. But I recommended that service to a lot of people, and they have significantly increased open rates and conversion rates because they've ran their headline through a headline analyzer. The second thing that I have in terms of a final thought is, of course, when we come back to that database management, really it's about how people are being inputted into your database. If you've done that, you've controlled the top of the funnel of when people are entering and then control their experience throughout, then you are achieving success. But the one thing I said that I'm going to hit at one more time is, if it was easy, everyone would do it. So these welcome email series that we set up is a great idea, but it takes a big time investment to get this right. And also, if we're getting really tactical about it, we're going to start segmenting our welcome email series based on our lead magnet and list acquisition efforts, which makes it just a little bit trickier, but I promise it's worth the pain. It's absolutely worth the pain. If you have not set up a welcome email series, do it, and you're going to achieve higher success rates overall, just in terms of a relationship with the people that are joining your lists and people that exist on your database. And then the third and final thing that I'd really encourage people to do, of course, and we've kind of hit on it, but is really just be social on social media. I saw, something funny today, which was Emily Zugay on TikTok, who's like redesigning like these massive brands like NASCAR and the Washington Post and NFL and things like that. And just brands tapping into that. There's going to be a ton of opportunities over the course of this year and next year as to when you can inject yourself in the conversation. So monitor those hashtags, monitor those trends, and look for opportunities to inject your message. And, coming back to that merchandise store idea, if I come up with the right t-shirt idea at the right time, that's going to just skyrocket my efforts. I mean, it's going to be really tremendous if you catch on to that viral trend. And then one last, fourth, and final quick bonus item thing here is, with these petitions, these surveys, we can get started for free using something as simple as Google Forms. And if I go on social media, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and I'm able to get just 5 people a day, Monday through Friday, that's going to be more than 1,000 people on my email list by the end of the year. It just takes a little elbow grease, a little work, but you can get lots of people on your email list with just hustle. And I really encourage you to take that step. The conservative movement needs more activists out there. I hope all of us here on this call are willing to take that fight, because we need more people on these digital front lines.